13 books, 5 5-star reads, 1 book I didn't even end up rating. These are all the books I read in June. Hello book friends, I'm Jen and welcome back to my reading life and welcome to another monthly wrap-up video. Today I am here to wrap up all of the books that I read in the month of June. June was a very good reading month overall for me. Do I say that every month? I'm kind of feeling like I do. I read a total of 13 books in June, which feels good. I guess I haven't been saying that every month has been a good reading month because I know I've had some challenging reading months this spring. So June feels like a bit of a comeback reading month, which is really wonderful, to be honest. I'm so glad that my summer reading is off to such a great start. I only had one book that was really a dud. Everything else I very much enjoyed, and I actually ended up with 5 5-star reads and 4 books that are probably going to go on my all-time favorites list. They will definitely be on my favorites list for 2026. So without further ado, let us get into all of the books that I read in June. First up is a book that I didn't end up rating, and I'm actually not going to talk about this book in any detail because I did an exclusive review of this book for my Book Jenny's Patreon tier. They picked this book for me to read and I sort of did. And they all got to hear all of my detailed thoughts on it, and that book was Nothing to Report by Carola Oman. The one thing I will say about this book is that it is the first Dean Street Press furrowed middlebrow book that hasn't really worked for me. There were a lot of reasons for that, but suffice it to say, this one was a miss and we're gonna move on from it now. Next up is a book by an author who has a mystery series that I absolutely adore and rave about all the time, but this is the first standalone novel by her that I have read, and that was Thale's Folly by Dorothy Gilman. Thale's Folly follows Andrew Thale. He works for his father. His father is a very wealthy businessman, and one day his father sends him up to his aunt's property, Thale's Folly, this home that the aunt has passed away and it has now become his father's property, and the father wants him to go check it out, see what it's like, see what the grounds are like, with the intent probably that they're going to sell it. So Andrew heads off to Massachusetts to visit Thale's Folly, and when he arrives there, he finds that the property is not deserted, and there are a group of people living there, people who had been taken in by his aunt, and they just remained there after her death, and he gets kind of wrapped up in their world, and they are quite an eccentric group of people, and there's a little bit of romance, and there's a little bit of mystery happening here, and I enjoyed this. It was a very light read. I did feel a little bit like I didn't wholly connect with Andrew, and because it's not a very long book, it also didn't give the opportunity to kind of flesh out all of the cast of characters. But if you want something just kind of, you know, a good story with an interesting set of characters, and I think I really love the house most of all. It was probably my favorite character in this book, and it definitely is a character unto itself. Next up is one of the most recent releases that just came out from Dean Street Press as part of their furrowed middlebrow imprint, and that is All I Desire by Dorothy Lambert. And I have to thank Victoria at Dean Street Press for sending me an advanced copy of this book. I thought this was so much fun. It was my first Dorothy Lambert, and Dean Street Press has republished 4 of her books. They all came out on July 1st, and I can't wait to read more by her. But this one follows Hermia and her daughter Jeremy, and they have recently come from abroad to live in this small English village. I think it's sort of like a suburb of London. It's called Holmes Street. So they end up renting this big manor house. Hermia is a romance novelist, and so their arrival kind of shakes things up in the village, and we follow along with them and also with a number of other characters. I will say there are a lot of characters that you get introduced to at first, and while I think I pretty quickly figured out who everybody was and what their relationships were. You might have to give yourself a chapter or 2 or 3 to kind of get settled into whom everybody is. But once I did, I just thought this was so much fun. It's very light, it's very, village life oriented. And if that is what you are looking for, I just thought this was a lot of fun. Can't wait to read my next Dorothy Lambert, but this was definitely a good place to start with her. Next up is an audiobook that I listened to in June, and that was The Life Impossible by Matt Haig. I have to thank one of my Book Jenny's Patreon members who mentioned this during our May book chat, and I immediately checked it out from my library and started listening to it. And I've only read one other thing by Matt Haig, which was The Midnight Library, and I very much enjoyed it. And The Life Impossible was another great book by him. In this, we are following Grace, and she is an older protagonist, and she has recently found out that a friend from a long time ago, Grace was a teacher, and another woman that she taught with many years ago has suddenly left Grace her home in Ibiza. Grace is stunned by this. She hasn't heard from this woman in decades, and a lot has happened to Grace in her life, and she's alone and lonely and relatively unhappy. And so she decides to go to Ibiza and at least check this house out and see what is going on and why this woman left it to her. And you go along from there. And there's something very interesting going on. Grace finds this jar of what looks like water, and she dumps it out in the front yard, and a flower thought to be extinct grows from the spot where this water was dumped. And then the next day, the jar of water is refilled again. And so this sort of starts Grace on this kind of quest to find out what exactly is going on, what was in this jar. And I just really liked there was a lot of found family in this book, a lot of Grace coming to terms with guilt that she has about something really tragic that happened in her life. I will say to look up trigger warnings for this book because there is a traumatic event, that happens, though it's really off page and mostly just referred to as something that had happened in long ago past, but it's still an important piece of the book and it comes up again and again. So look into that if you're concerned. I just really liked Grace's redemption and her growth and what ends up happening to her. And it's just so lovely. So I definitely recommend this. I'm looking forward to reading more by Matt Haig. If you have read other things by him, let me know what I should read next. Next up is a book that was a reread for me, and it was also a book that we picked for the Cozy Reader Book Club for June, and that was The Number One Ladies Detective Agency by Alexander McCall Smith. And this is the first book in the Number One Ladies Detective Agency series, and it was so wonderful for me to revisit the beginning of Precious Ramotsue's story and meet all of the characters that become central to this series as it goes on, and I thoroughly enjoyed going back to it. I think overall this is just such a lovely mystery series. It tackles mysteries that aren't super dark or heavy. There isn't usually a murder. There might be a few sprinkled throughout the series, but a lot of times it's a missing persons case or a theft or something along those lines that she is trying to sort out and solve. And if that is what you're looking for, then definitely give this a read. But I will have to say that rereading this prompted me to pick up the series where I had last left off of it. And I just recently finished reading book 15 in the series, and I'll be talking about that one in my July wrap-up. And next up is another mystery and another audiobook, and that was the most recent entry in the Lady Hardcastle mystery series, which is Murder on the Rocks by T.E. Kinsey. You all know I love Lady Hardcastle and Flo, and this was another great entry into this series. In this one, they are off on a bit of a holiday. They have been asked by this man that they had met in a previous mystery, and he's very wealthy, and he has bought up this island, and he is putting together this hotel, and he's invited some friends to kind of do a test run of the hotel and see how everything works before opening it to the public. And it's going to be very swanky, so only really rich people can go to this hotel. It's on this island you can only get to by this one boat at certain times, and so it's very isolated. It's got a bit of "and then there were none" feel to it, even though that is not the mystery that is happening here. Lady Hardcastle and Flo arrive on the island. They meet all of the other guests staying there. And then very shortly after that, some of the ladies staying at the hotel have found that some of their jewels are missing. So we've got this jewel theft. And then while they're in the midst of trying to sort that out, there is a guest who is found murdered with a very unusual weapon, and they have to figure out who the murderer is. And of course, it's a very limited number of people on this island, and they're all stuck there. And I just loved it because I love Lady Hardcastle and I love Flo, and I love the audiobooks of these read by Elizabeth Nolden. She is a fabulous audiobook narrator, one of my very favorites. It's just such a wonderful, cozy, adjacent mystery series. Next up is a middle grade book that I picked up because my lovely friend Beth from Small Home Comforts mentioned this book during our summer reading live stream. This was one of her recommendations for a great summer read, and that is Pinkie Pie by Eleanor Estes. And this is actually the sequel to Ginger Pie, and no, I haven't read Ginger Pie yet, so I'm doing things a bit out of order, but apparently Ginger Pie is set in the winter, so I'm planning to read it this winter. But Pinkie Pie is set in the summer. In this, we follow the Pie family. The father is an ornithologist. He's been asked to go to Fire Island because somebody has spotted a bird on Fire Island, which shouldn't be there. So he is off to go look at and monitor the birds on Fire Island, which is off the coast of Long Island in New York. And so it ends up that the whole Pie family goes, including their dog and their cat. And when they arrive there, they are staying at this cottage. And very quickly, they come to adopt Pinkie, who is a kitten who was found by a local girl on the island, and she offers Pinkie up to the Pie family, and they fall in love with Pinkie, and Pinkie ends up embedding herself in their family and getting into all kinds of mischief. And this is just such a fun, lovely middle grade book about family and kids being kids and summertime and, you know, what everybody gets up to. And then there's a little bit of a mystery that happens, and it's just a lot of fun. I can 100% see why Beth recommended this, and I'm so glad she did because I am thrilled to have read it. And if you have a child in your life who likes cats, this would be a great book for them. Next up is a book by an author who has now become an author. I want to read everything that she has written, that she will write, and that is How to Age Disgracefully by Claire Pooley. In this, we're following Daphne. She is 70 and she's alone in her life for reasons you come to understand. And she decides to join a local seniors club that is starting. And it's not well attended, but these few seniors who end up coming to this club end up really kind of transforming each other's lives, and they each have something going on with them. You also meet a teenage boy who kind of becomes enmeshed in their group as well, and it's just one of those great books about found family that I think when it's done well, it's just so good. And this just left me feeling happy when I finished it. I just loved it. I think Claire Pooley is really a lovely writer, and it's nice to have a modern writer that I'm really excited to read all that she's written. Next up is a book that I actually started reading in January and was going to read it seasonally, and then I just ended up one day sitting down with some iced tea and a snack, and I ended up reading both the summer and fall sections in the book, so I finished it. It's very slim, and that is Through the Kitchen Window by Susan Hill. This is just such a lovely seasonal read. If you like Susan Branch and Gladys Tabor, I definitely think you should pick this one up. It is beautifully illustrated by Angela Barrett. Let me find you one of the full 2-page spread illustrations, just beautiful. But this is just full of seasonal anecdotes and recipes and quotes and ideas for different like seasonal dinner menus and different things. It's just one of those books you can kind of just sit down with a cup of tea and just peruse at your leisure. And it's so beautiful, and I'm so excited to have it on my shelf. I very much loved this one, and I highly recommend it to all of you out there who I know also love little seasonal reading books. This is a great one. Now we are getting down to the top books that really are going to be new favorites of mine. And first up is a memoir, and that is Our Hearts Were Young and Gay by Cornelia Otis Skinner and Emily Kimbrough. And I have to thank my mom for this one. She actually talked about this book during our mother-daughter book chat that we did last year. I will link that for you here and in the description box below if you'd like to check that out. But this was a book that she read and loved when she was young. I'm so glad that I was able to get this copy of it. It's basically about Cornelia and Kimberly's experience traveling to Europe when they were in their like late teens, early 20s. So they had met at college, and then they decided to take this trip together. And it is so much fun, so very funny. There are so many funny scenes in this book, particularly the first ship that they are on. Right when the ship takes off, it gets moored in some shallow water. And so the boat is stuck, but it's stuck at an angle. And they're trying to figure out, the powers that be are trying to figure out how to get the boat unstuck. And in the meantime, all the passengers are stuck on the ship. But they're sort of trying to like keep things normal. So they had planned to have this dance one evening. And so they do have this dance, but because the ship is at an angle, everybody on the dance floor is sort of sliding from one side to another. The way she describes it, much better than I can describe it. So very funny. There are some lovely illustrations in here, and the illustrations were done by Alajalov. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. Let me see if I can find a good one. Here is the scene where they're dancing. So great. I can definitely see myself rereading this book. I love this. I can't rave about it enough. If you enjoy memoirs, if you enjoy travel writing, then definitely give this a read. Oh, and if you love humor, because it is so very funny. I laughed out loud multiple times. Yes, loved it. Next up is the book that I read with my D.E. Stevenson Buddy Read group on Instagram. And for June, we read The Tall Stranger. And I said in my review on Goodreads of this that with every D.E. Stevenson novel I read, it gets harder and harder for me to pick my favorites of hers because I just love them all so much. So when I'm in the middle of a D.E. Stevenson book, I will think to myself, yes, this is my new favorite. Then I finish it and think back to all my other books, to all the other books of hers that I've read. And then I'm just confused all over again because I just love them all so much. In this, we're following Barbie France. She has been ill and in hospital and is having a really hard time recovering, and she's very depressed and she's no interest in anything. And so it is decided that she should go to stay with her aunt who raised her in the Cotswolds. And so Barbie is shipped off to the Cotswolds, and immediately the country air and being with family and just being in a home rather than a hospital starts to lift Barbie's spirits. And we just follow along with her as she recovers. And her Aunt Amelie, who she's staying with, has a stepson, Edward and Barbie grew up together, and Edward sort of comes back into her life after kind of being out of it for a little while, and there's maybe going to be a little bit of a romance there, and you kind of follow along with what happens. Barbie also has a roommate, and there is a minor subplot involving her going on as well. I really loved Barbie. It was just fun watching her sort of blossom and recover. And then when she goes back to her life in London, she works for an interior design firm, which was also just really fun. Kind of look at domestic life, but through a slightly different lens, like from this sort of interior design lens. And so I really enjoyed that as well. And that job takes Barbie up to Scotland, and all kind of new acquaintances and friendships develop there. And yes, it was just such a delight. Another wonderful D.E. Stevenson. I will say there's a character in here that you meet who also shows up in, is it the Musgraves? I think it's the Musgraves. I'll double check that. If I'm wrong, I will put the title here, but definitely read this book before you read that book. I read that book first and it was fine. But I think the character, you'll want to meet that person here first before you meet them in the Musgraves. And that will just kind of help with the continuity of things. But if you've already read the Musgraves, you can still read The Tall Stranger and enjoy it. I certainly did. Next up is a book I picked up because while I was reading Nothing to Report by Carola Oman, I was feeling like maybe a reading slump was coming on, and I really needed something that I knew was going to be wonderful. And so I picked up Pink Sugar by O. Douglas. This is part of the Priorsford trilogy. So there is Pink Sugar, Penny Plain, and Priorsford. And Pink Sugar doesn't really follow the characters from Penny Plain and Priorsford. It follows separate characters, though there are some crossover characters, and so that is really fun. But I think you can read Penny Plain and Pink Sugar in kind of any order. But then definitely I think you need to read Priorsford after Penny Plain. From my understanding, that is the sequel to it, and I'm planning to read that next. But Penny Plain was so lovely. We're following Kirsty Gilmore, and she has bought this house, Little Fantasy with a PH. And we follow Kirsty as she's kind of getting settled in. She has a good friend whose family is coming back from India, and they're going to settle nearby as well. And this friend of hers it's either her brother or brother-in-law has been recently widowed, and he has 3 young children. He is just struggling. He really needs to, or wants to, just go off and travel. I guess like you did back in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. He's going to go off, but he needs somebody to watch the children. And so Kirsty decides to take them in. And she just feels like she wants to help people. She wants to give back. She has a lot of money. Up until this point, she has had a stepmother who really kind of ruled Kirsty's life, and they live this very nomadic existence. And so Kirsty is just excited to settle down and give back to her community. And that's what she's going to try to do. It is just so lovely and charming, and another village life story. You know how I love those. There's a little bit of romance, there's lots of friendship and community, and it was just exactly what I needed. I called it a balm for my soul. I absolutely think that O. Douglas's books have become that for me, so I need to remember, if I'm struggling with my reading, pick up an O. Douglas book. But Pink Sugar was fabulous. And then my final read for June was such an unexpected delight. I read this book in less than a day. I just whipped through it. It was so fun. And that is Receipts from the Bookshop, A Bookseller's Year by Katie Clapham. And this is Katie Clapham's memoir of basically what it says, working in the bookshop that she co-owns with her mother. And she only works there on Fridays, and so her mother can have time off. And then if her mother goes on holiday, then Katie also minds the bookstore while her mom is gone. And it's just all about her observations and little things that happen while she's working at the bookstore and thoughts that she has. And of course, there's lots of bookish references in here. I just love this because it took me back to my book selling days. It just kind of the customer interactions and the different kind of funny, odd things that happen just spoke to me. I absolutely adored this. I loved Katie Clapham's voice in this book, and it's just lovely. And you know, it's lots of little anecdotes. She also has quotes from different people who come into the bookstore and things, or don't come into the bookstore. Like here it says, 3 women look at the window display of bakery books. Oh, it's a bookshop. All the books are about cakes. I don't want to make them though. I just want to eat them. So they don't come into the bookstore. Yes, that's the kind of stuff that happens when you work in a bookstore. But if that sounds fun to you, I will say, if you are a book lover, if you like shopping or browsing in bookstores, definitely give Receipts from the Bookshop a read. Finished it in less than a day. Loved it. New favorite. Can't recommend it enough. And that will wrap up my June month of reading. It was a good one, you guys. I read some really great books. I'd love to know if I've piqued your interest about reading any of the books I mentioned here today. And what was a favorite book of yours that you read in June? Let us talk about June reading down in the comments below. And if you're here but you don't have anything that you'd like to add in the comments, but you would like to let me know that you were here, let's just leave some hearts in the comments this time. Leave me some heart emojis. Let me know you were here. I love seeing those comments, and they really do help my channel, as do likes if you enjoyed this video and hypes on the YouTube mobile app. Both of those things really help new viewers to find my channel. And if you're a new viewer and you haven't yet done so, I would love it if you would subscribe and join my cozy corner of BookTube. Thank you all so much for being here, for all of your wonderful comments on my most recent videos. I have been enjoying chatting with you about all the bookish things. I will be back, as always, with another video very soon. And until then, I wish you a good book and a warm cuppa. Bye.